Well, hello there on this Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to be doing a little something later myself, so I might have to cut the show a tad short today, but I wanted to come on for a bit. I'm going to wait to see if some people come to join me. Um, Rather unspectacular day for me so far, but I hope you guys out there have been doing some fun things for yourself. Some lovely weather here in Los Angeles. 70 degrees, not too hot, not too cold. I'd say just right, the way I like it, before the big heat wave comes in. And of course, we had some good news today from Garden Grove, that chemical plant that there was great worry about one of the tanks exploding and of course releasing a lot of toxic chemicals into the air and potentially blowing up a lot of homes in the regions. And people are still evacuated. I think something like 50,000 people, but at least the concern about the possibility of an explosion has been averted. So that's very good news. A lot of prayers have been answered. Let's see. Oh, well, hello there, Ward. At least I have one person on here. I'm just waiting to see if a few more people jump in. I don't know if I'm going to do a very long show today, but I wanted to at least do something for consistency and just see what you guys want to talk about. Anything on your minds, any questions you may have, and I'll talk about some of my projects right now. Is everything okay in my neck of the woods? Yeah, my neck of the woods. I was just saying that the concerns about the chemical plant in Garden Grove exploding that has been averted, and it's looking a lot more promising. And well, hello there. Thank you for joining me. Let's see, how do I pronounce that? Uh, Prem, Demaro? Did I say that? 2691. Please forgive me. I really wish I had phonetic spellings so I could say everybody's name correctly. That matters to me because I have great respect for each of you, and you deserve that. Also, it's embarrassing when I can't say your name right, but I try my sincerest best. So, what's going on with the two of you? Anything interesting? Are you enjoying your Memorial Day? Are you doing anything special? Have you been doing anything special for this weekend? I certainly haven't been doing a damn thing other than just working. What was this? Are they planning to move those deadly chemicals to an isolated, unpopulated area? I don't know. I haven't seen anything said on the news. It's certainly been the top story in the local news, and it's been making top stories on the national news as well. So, but I think right now there's been so much fear of an explosion. That's been the focus. Like first thing first, and then we'll probably hear more about what the next courses of action are going to be. I live about 50 miles from there, but uh, all of us would be affected by that. The chemicals once again in the air, the wind starts blowing them around. It's certainly a concern for the future. And not just for us, anywhere in the country and in the world, accidents like this can happen. Well, hello, Kelly. Thank you for joining. How are you doing? I see people saying hello to each other. It's really cute. Um, Sasha is off sleeping somewhere. You may remember a couple of weeks ago, I did my first show after I got back from Europe. And that was when she was still in her stage of clinging to me like she was surgically attached to me, more so than just a shadow. I was here trying to do some card readings for people, and she kept walking across my little lap desk, knocking the cards on the floor. And I was trying my best to keep my focus, and it wasn't working too well. But Sasha is doing a lot better. It was hard. It was hard because she had never been left for such a long period. I had left her once for 4 days when I went to Fairmount, Indiana, James Dean's hometown, to visit my artwork, which is a permanent part of the town. And she didn't take that too well. She was clinging to me for about 2 weeks after that, but I really feared leaving her for 2 weeks. And fortunately, all of my worst fears were confirmed. It was quite traumatic for her, but my darling little Siamese is over here in the corner. I'm not going to bother her right now. She may wake up and decide to walk over, but she's glad Daddy's home. Yeah, Kelly. Yeah, Sasha is doing much better. But it's just a reminder to all of us that our pets, for that matter, all animals, have emotions. They have feelings. They have love. Their hearts get broken. It's quite something. It blows me away how much this cat loves me. I guess I am just her whole world. Award, yes, at least I know Sasha thinks of me more than just her servant who cleans her litter box and acts as a human can opener for her food. Hey, Chris, how you doing? Are you having a good Memorial Day, Chris? Doing anything special? Have you done anything special for the weekend? I've asked that question several times here. As I said, I haven't done a damn thing, but I may be meeting with a friend after this show. So I don't know if I'm going to be on here as long as I usually am for that reason. Yeah, I agree, Chris. Sometimes just nothing is fine. Sometimes we get so burned out and tired, and we need a vacation. Like when I got back from Europe, I need a vacation from the vacation. That's a joke we often make, but it's true. When you're just going and going and going and going. My vacations, like to Europe, tend to be type A occasions. Like, how many cities and countries can I cram into 7 days? And then like when I was in Rome, I didn't keep track, but I know for a fact that I walked several miles a day. I mean, I could tell because I ate obscene amounts of pasta, lots of carb loading, and I fully expected to gain weight. I fully expected to have trouble fastening my pants before I got on the plane home. No, I didn't gain any weight. All that walking. What was this for? As I said, I visited Papa's grave and put out a large flag to mark this weekend. Well, that's a beautiful thing to do. And it is important. Remember, what is the reason for Memorial Day? And to honor our veterans. I think that's a beautiful thing you did. Chris, you went to Home Depot and Trader Joe's, which reminds me, I need to make a Trader Joe's run, but I'm not going to have time to do it today. Let's see, celebrate your granddaughter's high school graduation. Well, congratulations. That's beautiful. What was this? Do you have a favorite Italian city? Well, that's like choosing amongst my children. I've only been to 3 Italian cities in my life. Many years ago, I went to Venice, and it was just a love affair with Venice. And then this most recent trip, I was in Rome and Florence. Love affair. I mean, so much so, I'm not joking. I didn't want to come home. I didn't want to leave Rome. There's a big part of my heart in that city. And had I stayed longer in Florence, that would probably be true as well. It had me pondering. I mean, I'm certainly not going to do anything crazy or impetuous, like just pack up my cat and a suitcase and move to Italy. But it had me thinking. It had me thinking about researching what it would entail, making a few more visits, different locations. If I were to do something like that, it would definitely have to be in a small town, village. It couldn't be an expensive place like Rome. At least I don't think so. But, like when you're in a major city like Rome or Florence, 85% of the people speak English. At least that was what was told to me by the concierge at my hotel, about 85%. And I believe it to be true. I never had problems almost anywhere finding someone who could speak English, that I could ask questions, that I could ask directions. Cab drivers all spoke English. Go in the stores, they spoke English. Restaurants. But when you go in those smaller communities, you've got to know the language. And my Italian is very deficient. I'd have to really, really step up the online courses and lessons, and also find people to interact with to practice the language. That would be a big concern right there. But maybe in a few years, I could see myself living there. I really could see that. I loved the way of life in Italy. I love the Italian people. I love the Italian cities. But oh wait, I guess the question was, what's my favorite Italian city? Well, that's a tough one because, as I mentioned, Venice, Rome, and Florence are the three I've been to, and as far as I'm concerned, each one of those is a 10. Um, been many years since I've been to Venice, but in fact, 37 years since I've been to Venice. But I spent the bulk of my trip in Rome, and I was just in love the entire time I was there. Rome is a city with a soul, as I believe all cities do. But this is an old soul city, and so much history, culture, literally some of the greatest art in the world, art from Da Vinci and Michelangelo. I mean, you can just go on, and it's just that energy just envelops you. And I believe I said this last week and I was on here, but Rome is a city where you don't decide where you want to go necessarily. It tells you where to go. And I found just walking the little streets, the little alleys, I kept making the most incredible discoveries and stumbling upon things by accident. I mean, I literally stumbled across the Pantheon completely by accident, because I was trying to find the Trevi Fountain. I was like, well, son of a bitch, there's the Pantheon. I didn't know that was here. It was like that. And I'm also regretting I had so little time there. I very much want to go back because there's so much I didn't get to see. And I knew that was going to be the case with just 4 days. But I got a nice taste of it, and to know that I really, really, really love it. And I know I felt really good there, but I felt that way about Florence and Venice also. So I don't know. I don't know which I could call my favorite. What was it? If I were younger, I sure would leave here and move to Italy. My ancestors are Italian. I can't take it here any longer. Well, you know what? I'm hearing that so much, because, my job for Dr. Whimsy Anderson, who was my wonderful, wonderful friend. She's my wonderful friend. She was my travel companion. We went there together. Through her generosity, it was possible for me to have this great experience. And I will be grateful for the rest of my life. It was truly life-changing for me. But yeah, because of my work with Dr. Whimsy, I make phone calls on her behalf to her clients, her patients, and they're all over the country. And I just hear this over and over. People saying, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. I can't, this madness, this insanity. And a lot of people just can't watch the news anymore. They can't deal with it. And Whimsy and I have even changed the focus of our shows on Tuesdays and Thursdays, on her channel, The Oracle of Whimsy, where up until very recently, it was a very news-oriented show where we would take current events of the day and discuss them, but also do intuitive readings based upon questions from viewers. And Whimsy and I had a lot of time to talk about this on our trip, and we were both in agreement that we want to go and take a higher road, take a higher direction, and not necessarily do away with the news stories altogether, but greatly minimize their importance and focus on the shows. As Whimsy said, I said, it affects our mental health. People around the country I talk to on the phone say the same thing. It's affecting my mental health. We can't keep putting this poison into our brains. I know it's a very fine balance because it is essential to stay on top of the news, to keep abreast of what's going on. But we also have to take care of our own peace of mind, our core center, our balance. And I think for many of us, it's made us feel like we're being assaulted over the head. So Whimsy and I very much want to take an opposite direction where hopefully we can lift people up. We want to focus on things like health, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. And I know it sounds cliche and it sounds very Oprah Winfrey to say, we want you to live your best life, but that is exactly what we want to focus on, helping people to be their best. And I'm very excited about this new direction and even ways I can do it here. But let me get back to my comments here quickly before they get out of hand. Yeah, I was answering that about how you feel you can't take it here any longer. I'm not quite at that point where I can say I can't take it here any longer, but it does have me concerned. It does have me concerned the directions that our country has taken, and I don't want to get into a downer political conversation here. Believe me, that's not where I'm trying to go with this. But other than I lived in LA for many, many years, and I just know that whenever I am in Europe, and I hadn't been for quite a few years. This was my seventh trip abroad, but it was just a reminder that I consistently see people much happier over there. I see people more at peace. I see people who love their lives. They're more about the basics, the basics of just really living a good life. And that was quite infectious for me. And even in Italy, I was very aware of the great spirituality there. And that doesn't mean necessarily ties to Catholicism or a formal religion, just a wonderful sense of spirituality that's intrinsic. I will say this, I've never seen so many churches in one place as I've seen in Rome and Florence. And it was actually nice to step inside a few of those just to meditate, reflect, and say a few prayers for people in my life. I like that very much. And I can see that that people handle that very well over there. That's part of their core of living. Oh yeah, Diane, we were in Lake Como last year. I've been there. I've been around Lake Como on the train, and this was the time I was in Venice. I was many years ago. I took a train from Paris to Venice, and as you can imagine, it was my God. I'm trying to remember how many hours that was. How many hours was that? Because it seems like we left like 11 o'clock at night, and it was well into the day. When we finally arrived in Venice. I can't remember the specifics, but what I do remember was about 6 o'clock in the morning, opening up the window on the train. It was a sleeper train. And we were going through the Swiss Alps. And I remember that cool, fresh, sweet smelling air. I mean, literally sweet smelling air. And that's when you live in Los Angeles, you don't smell sweet smelling air too often. So it's all the more apparent. And I just remember, it was so divine and so heavenly. And looking at the snow covered Alps. And then a little further along that morning, we went into northern Italy and went around Lake Como. I got to do this again sometime. I wanted to do it in 2020. And we had this little inconvenient thing called the pandemic lockdown. So my great trip that I was going to take on my birthday that year, I spent sitting here on this couch talking on my phone to people. That's how I spent my birthday. But it was okay. It was okay. I finally got my Italian trip. Let's see here. Oh, warrior speaking, as long as mama's in this world, I'm staying here, but all bets are off when she no longer needs you. Yeah, and she would want you to go on with your life. She would want you to travel. Oh, Kelly, I dream of going to Ireland and Scotland. Well, I haven't been to Ireland yet. Came close once, but I have been to Scotland. I've been to Edinburgh, Scotland. I loved it. loved Scotland. It was, oh my God. Again, that's been many years for me also. And that was the trip I took with a couple of friends, and we drove from London all the way up through England, stopping off at Stonehenge and uh, Liverpool and Manchester, and then crossing over into Scotland. And because you're so far north, and this was in the early summer, so it didn't get dark until almost midnight. And Edinburgh was such a treat. But Edinburgh, even though it was summertime, it was quite cold. Well, not cold, cold, but like, if I remember, like 45 degrees or something. It was cold enough to wear a scarf and earmuffs and a cap because there was that wind coming in from the ocean also. But I highly recommend it. I almost went to Ireland. Almost. It was when I was in London. I was coming out of Harrods. And on the sidewalk, there was this person selling day trips to Ireland. It was literally, it was really cheap. It was like under £100. This was, of course, well, that's right. Europe, England still is on the pound system, not the euros. It was quite affordable. It was a day trip. They were signing up people, and they were going to have a bus take you to the airport, and you would fly there and be there for about 8 hours and get on a plane and fly back, and they would take you back to Harrods. I would have done that, except it was my very last day in London, and I was flying out early in the morning, and I didn't want to take any chances on something going wrong, like my flight being delayed or something not being able to get back. So I thought, something in my gut just said, don't do this. But damn, I'd love to have gone to Dublin, Ireland, even for one day. It's on the agenda, but yeah, Scotland, you got to do it. Let me get back. Oh, hey, Andy. I didn't say hello to you. Hi, Andy. Or Katum. Forgive me if I'm missing people here. It's kind of hard to talk and look at the comments at the same time. Let me scroll through these. I just had it jump on me here. Let me go back. Yeah, Lord, you did say that a week is not enough to cover the city. And I even knew that going in, but there was just only so much we could do. It was a partial working trip with Dr. Whimsy, and we had a lot of sites that we had to cover for people who had made requests for us to make videos. And we found it was easier said than done. It's one thing to just sit down and go, okay, we're going to go here, Tower of London. We're going to go Buckingham Palace. We're going to go to St. Paul's, Big Ben, blah, blah. It's another thing when you're actually doing it, when you're actually getting on buses and taking taxis and taking subways and walking, and also dealing with the elements. The day we went to Buckingham Palace, and we did shoot some remotes in the front. I don't know if Whimsy has aired those yet on her channel, but there was a very high pollen count that day. And I know that because I was watching, it's either the BBC or Sky News that morning. They warned us about it. And sure enough, we both got hit by it. And Whimsy, her allergies were a little more severe than mine. But even for me, when we were trying to do a segment, I would be, well, we're in front of Buckingham. My throat would get caught, and we'd have to we had to do like 3 or 4 takes before we could finally get something usable. We were both coughing from all the pollen, and Whimsy ended up getting an upper respiratory infection. Unfortunately, that did mar her own time in Rome. I was so sorry about that. But she assured me it was a spiritual trip for her too, and she had no regrets, and I'm so glad about that. Certainly brought us closer together. We've always been close friends, but it's another thing when you're taking a great journey like that and traveling, and travel can be a real test of friendships. Either you get along or you don't get along. Well, we got along just fine. We did well. We were very much on the same page with a lot of things. Ward, the Celtic lands are beautiful, but be prepared to make rain and clouds your friends. Well, you know, I know from my very first trip to England. I remember then. Let's see, I think at the time of year was around April, and it was like every 20 minutes there would be a cloud burst or something. You just carried an umbrella with you. Well, I brought a little portable umbrella with me, packed it in my little carry-on bag. Excuse me, I just have to get a drink. And actually, I gotta get some water here. I thought I had something in my cup. Pardon me, please. Yeah, I brought a little umbrella with me, and I didn't use it once. This is the first time, all 7 trips to Europe and 5 trips to the United Kingdom, that it never rained. I don't know if that's indicative of global warming, climate changing, but I was shocked to be in the UK. There were days where there wasn't even a cloud in the sky, which is like the way it is here in Southern California, about 9-10 months out of the year. Very strange, very strange. And I don't know. I should have asked the locals if that's typical weather right now. I have the weather app on my phone now for London, so I may start gauging it more. In fact, I want to look at it right now. I'm just curious. Has there been any rain there? I have Facebook friends in London, and they're telling me that it's a big heat wave right now. And I was there once during a heat wave. I was there once. What time was it? I think it was June or July. I was in London, and it was like a sauna bath. Oh, it was just miserably hot and humid. Well, I see here in Rome, it's nighttime and it's 64 degrees right now. Yes, I still have it on my phone. I miss Rome. London. Well, they do have a 55% chance of rain next Monday, but for the most part, sunny and cloudy. Gee. And today they are projected to be 91 degrees. Well, and looks like I was there just in the time I was supposed to be there. Yeah, Kelly, take extra money for umbrellas. You can pretty much buy them easily. I just bought a little folding one to bring with me. Never needed it one time. Ward, I'm doing my best to rebel by being as kind as possible to folks who are colleagues and those who serve on a regular basis. Well, you can never go wrong with that. I'm going to have this water I talked about. It's a little better. It's hard to talk, and sometimes voice gives out. Or Kelly does as well as waterproof footwear and overcoats. I didn't need any of that, and I was expecting to. Believe me, I thought about that. I thought, well, I've got an umbrella, but I didn't bring any real rain gear with me or anything. But I think part of that is because I'm so spoiled by Southern California, living here for several decades now, where we don't get rain for like 9-10 months. I'm so used to that oftentimes when I'm traveling, I forget, oh, it's not like that here. You need a coat here. You need a cap. You need a scarf. You need gloves. You need a umbrella. I just never think of that until it's too late and I'm there and I'm stranded. And I think one of the worst experiences, now that I think about it, was we were going through a heat wave in the mid-90s here in Los Angeles, and I was flying to Colorado, to Denver, for my niece's wedding, and it was something like 30 degrees there. And I came very, very close to getting on the plane in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. And it was some reason at the last minute, I checked the weather and I thought, oh, I guess I better pack some sweaters and some jackets. and I better have something to put on when I get off the plane there. It's going to be a shock. And it was a shock. What was this, Andy? I see he passed by my flowers line. What was your flowers line? Let me go back here. I'm sorry, Andy. It's very hard to keep up with all the comments and talk. What was this, Andy? You smell the flowers and you can get the Roma. Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, about Rome. Yeah. Sorry about that. Okay. What was this as well as, okay, let me get down here a little further. The Heidi Christensen. Hi, Heidi. War with the heat today in North Dakota. I would love to have some rain to cool down. I'm a Seattle girl through and through and don't do well in heat. I don't do well in heat either. And I grew up in heat. I grew up in Virginia, where it is like a swamp. I mean, the whole East Coast is like a swamp in the summertime. It just gets so unbearably humid. And I never, ever liked it. And it used to be when I lived here in Southern California, it wasn't incredibly humid because of the desert climate. And I was so happy about it when I first moved here. But now there are times it gets as humid here as the East Coast. So again, it's climate change. What was this here word? Rome smells like coffee and cigarette smoke. 1 or 2 is not bad. You know what? I mean, I'm not a smoker. I normally don't like cigarette smoke, but it didn't bother me. But I got to say this. Having been to Europe a lot, having been to Spain, Barcelona, Paris, Amsterdam, cities where I used to see people outdoors at the cafe just smoking and smoking and smoking. I used to see so much smoking. I did not, and I hadn't even thought about this now until I saw your comment. I didn't see a lot of cigarette smoking in Rome or Florence, now that I think about it, because I know that is almost the stereotypical image. When you think of Italy, you think of Rome, you think of that smell of espresso, you think of the smoking, and certainly saw the espresso, but not the cigarettes. Isn't that interesting? I hadn't thought about that. What is this? Diane vibe? Like Como is delicious, and I agree about Venice. Wonderful. Just got back from Japan. People there are so gracious. Food is so clean, and it was wonderful. I have a friend who's in Tokyo right now, and I'm looking forward to his getting back to give me a firsthand account. But it's just like what you said about the people so gracious. That's what I found all throughout the United Kingdom. That's what I found all throughout Rome and Florence. Nothing but completely gracious people. I didn't encounter one rude person. Not one. People were hospitable. They were warm. They were gracious. They were welcoming. And, I certainly had my concerns about anti-American sentiment, given what's going on right now. But no, I didn't encounter it. A few people talked about it and said, well, let's put it this way, we don't blame you, the American people, for what's going on. It's a certain someone else who's, shall we say, go nameless, who's being blamed for it, and very much so. The European people are horrified by what they're seeing, but they thankfully are not taking that on us. If anything, they have sympathy for us. Warm style. Oh, Ward, you're going through Seattle for a day. I still have not been to Seattle. I got to do it someday. Andy, I have a TV versus movie question, Chuck. Why in the Adam West Batman there's a I think you mean Aunt Harriet, and the movies there isn't mention of one? Well, you know what? Honestly, I've never seen. Well, no, wait. Okay. For some reason I had in my head, I was thinking of the old Batman serial movies. Now you're obviously referring to the modern day Batman movies. Only thing I can think of, the television series was very, very different from the movies that we see, which take on a much darker, more serious tone. The television series was more high camp. It was more tongue in cheek. It was almost a sitcom. And maybe Aunt Harriet was just looked at as a fun, jovial character for the other characters to play off of and bounce off. But she was seen as not especially essential for the motion pictures. I believe they kept Alfred the butler. Michael Caine played him. But the movies are very different entities for the television show. I think it goes far beyond just Aunt Harriet. Uh, you know, that's my own speculation about it. Did you have a favorite Italian meal on your trip? Please discuss some of the wonderful food you had. Well, I just ate endless pasta. My first night there was ravioli and calamari and the most incredible Chianti and bread. And I just kept filling up on ravioli. And oh my God, I've got to think about all the different pastas I had. But that was basically what I was doing each night. And I generally stuck to 2 meals a day and lots of walking. I had this paranoia about gaining weight, which was unfounded. I literally, if anything, I actually may have lost a little weight from all the walking I did. But what I remember also about the food is each of the hotels I stayed in offered the most incredible breakfasts, breakfast buffets. And you were just given such an assortment. Bruschetta, you were the most incredible eggs, croissants. God, I'm blanking out all the things that we had. There was so much food. I just remember assortments of cheeses, incredible cheeses to choose from, and salamis, and I just kept loading my plate up and going back and getting more and loading up. And my justification was that if I ate a really huge breakfast, it would sustain me for the day until I could eat a dinner late in the evening. And I was right. It did exactly that. It just stayed with me. So I remember those breakfasts as much as anything. But lots of pasta. And I think the very best pasta I ended up having, Whimsy had ordered it in her hotel room. I went on to Florence by myself because she wasn't feeling well. So I went there on the train, 2-hour trip to Florence, did a day trip and came back. And she ordered this fabulous pasta that was homemade with bone broth. That she asked, "What's your secret ingredient?" And they said, "We add bone broth to this." And she took me there the next day. It was our final day in Rome, and she said, "You've got to try this pasta. You just got to try it. I think you're gonna agree with me. This is the best of any you've had." Well, let me tell you, it was the least expensive. It was, I think, 8.5 euros, and that roughly converted to about $9. The dollar to the euro was fairly consistent while I was there. So roughly about $9. So it was a lot cheaper than any pasta I had in any of the restaurants. And it was just takeout. And the hotel we were staying at had this wonderful deck on top of the roof, on top of the 7th floor. We had this gorgeous 360-degree view of Rome. You could see the Colosseum one direction, you could see the Vatican out in another direction. And I just brought my pasta up there. And she sat there. She'd already eaten, and she said, "No, take a bite." I had to agree. I said, "This is amazing. This is the best of any of the pastas." And had I stayed there longer, I would have gone there every day and gotten that same pasta and brought it back to the roof for lunch. Yeah, I gotta, there's so much to remember. There was so much we crammed into those 2 weeks. So when you ask me to talk about the food and what are my favorites, I've got to actually go back and think and try to remember what were the meals I had each night. What did I eat? I would have done, maybe next time I'll be better prepared to answer that question, other than the food just was divine. It was heaven. I could eat like that every day. Of course, if I ate like that every day here, you would see about double the amount of chalk here. I'd be like this wide. I'd have to just adopt a lot of walking like I did there. Um, but you asked me if I had my favorite Italian meal. I think I'm a little biased because I love calamari, and I had that a lot when I was there. And I've even, maybe it's a bad joke to make, but I've always said if I was on death row and I was choosing my very last meal, it would probably include calamari. I just love it. Can I eat it right now? Let's see. Let me go back to the comments here. Pardon me. I'm trying to get everybody. And then, sorry, this skipped on me. So I got to get back to where it was. Okay. Oh, Ward, you're asking how is Dr. Whimsy's breathing now? The last I checked with her, it was a lot better. She's largely over her upper respiratory infection that she caught in London, and we're pretty sure it happened in Hyde Park in front of Buckingham Palace. We can almost pinpoint it. She's doing better. She deals with her allergies, and some of that has to do with her beloved cat Mila. But I'm she feels the same way about Mila I feel about Sasha. I'm just lucky I don't have cat allergies, but if I did, I wouldn't be getting rid of my cat. I would be taking medicine, I'd be taking shots, whatever it takes. The cat would definitely take top priority. But Whimsy does seem to be doing better. And Whimsy's in a really great place right now because we're both so excited about this new direction, this new positive direction that we're taking with the shows. Tomorrow, for example, we're going to be talking about brain health, mental health, and just things that you can do. And I've been already doing some of my own research, and I have my own naturopathic background as an assistant, but we want to just talk about things like mental clarity, memory, focus, emotional balance, energy, how aging affects the brain, and how even things adverse like lack of sleep, stress, improper nutrition can affect the brain, emotional health, mental health. So I think it's going to be an interesting show tomorrow, and it's something I look forward to talking with her. We want very much to help people. Again, I'm not trying to do an Oprah Winfrey cliche, but we want people to live their best lives. We want to take people out of all this negativity, this cesspool of negativity that's been affecting so many of us, and help people to find their core power within, the strength that we each have that is going to help us all together collectively to prevail. Let's see here. Oh, Heidi, you're talking about the Seattle waterfront. Ye Old Curiosity Shop, Pike Place Market, Ivar's Fish and Chips. Oh, I've got to get to Seattle. I haven't been there. I don't know how I've missed that. Oh, Andy, you're asking how Whimsy's feeling now also. Yeah, she is doing better, and in a very positive place. We're excited. We're really stoked about this. We spent time talking about this on the trip, and we were both in agreement that Rome had a great spiritual effect upon us. And it's interesting. I was going to address this on a previous show. I work with oracle cards when I read for people, and it was a few weeks ago when we were trying to decide our itinerary. We knew we were going to London. We knew we were going to Wales. But the big question was where to go there. Do we go to Northern England, Scotland, or go somewhere the continent of Europe? So we were floating around south of France. We were floating around Italy. We were floating around Lisbon, Norway. She even threw out Morocco. And I got that text from her, I was like, Morocco? And immediately I thought of Bing Crosby and Bob Hope on a camel in the desert, where off to the road to Morocco, and I thought, well, okay, I'm open. I'm open to an adventure. I'm open to going somewhere I've never been in my whole life. But Whimsy knew I really wanted to go to Italy. And, but I was being very open-minded about it because I wanted Whimsy to be happy. I wanted her to do what she wanted to do. And same time, she was wanting me to be happy and do what I wanted to do. So we were going back and forth, back and forth. And she was on here on one of the shows about a little over a month ago. And she had me pull cards. And she was asking me about the cities. And I was getting good positive things. I don't remember the specifics, but I was getting good positive things for each of the cities. The one thing, Morocco, I pulled up the risk card. And, I use the cards just to guide me. And then I go into my own intuition. That's how I read for people, how I read on this show, how I read on Whimsy's show. It's the cards are like an impetus. And I saw the risk card. Intuitively, I was feeling, okay, it's not huge risk, not huge, but this isn't quite as safe as the other places. Like we might encounter some obstacles, might encounter some trouble. And it was later Whimsy was telling me that, yeah, Morocco, she even looked into it herself. And she said, yeah, that would have been a riskier place to have gone. And she said, especially for a woman. She said she wouldn't feel so bad going there with a man, going with me. But she said, it's not a place for a woman to be alone. It's just not safe. A lot of women get seriously harassed there. Of course, she said that also can go on in other places too. Fortunately, because I'm everywhere. I'm very, very pro-feminist. Very much empathize with the causes of women, and I hate to see injustice for women. But she was even a little concerned about Italy. But the card I pulled up when she asked me about Rome was this one. I got unconditional love, and you'll see that below that, divine mother. And what I got from unconditional love, that doesn't mean the obvious. You're like, oh, yes, you're going to go off and find some great love and have some great love story or anything like that. You have to understand that love means like great romance for art, culture, history, the spiritual energy of the city, just that kind of love. And we were in agreement, once we got there, because we thought, oh, come on, it's not like we're going to find great loves or anything like that and have flings like Katharine Hepburn in the movie Summertime. Remember, that was the movie about the American secretary who went to Venice for 2 weeks and she has this wild affair with this Italian man. No, we both realized exactly what this card meant when we were there. It just meant love of life, love of culture, love of art, history. We were love of food, love of wine. That's what we were feeling when we were there. And what I found further intriguing about this divine mother, because one of the cathedrals there, and forgive me, I'm blanking on the name on it, it'll come to me, but they were celebrating Mother Mary. It was the 1st of May. And it's my understanding throughout the month of May, they celebrate Mother Mary. And there were all these beautiful festivities taking place. And we were also very touched by when we went inside the church and we saw these nuns who prayed literally around the clock. They would take prayer requests. And it had been an unbroken chain of prayer since the 1800s. I think we heard there were about 40 nuns who took shifts, 2-hour shifts around the clock. And we sat in one of the cathedrals and saw one of the nuns in prayer. And we were so moved by that. Whimsy was even saying, I'm a Jewish girl. I want to be a nun. And I laughingly said, oh, you mean like Barbara Streisand and Funny Girl? What, a convent take a Jewish girl? But we were just so impressed with the beautiful pure spirituality there that it almost like it transcended man-made religion. And that's what we were feeling throughout the whole city of Rome. And anyway, we felt so renewed, so inspired while we were there. We talked, like, over breakfast. We would talk about our shows and the directions that we very much want to take with them and we want to do for people. And I believe that's going to grow. That's going to blossom. And I'm anxious to see how the viewers respond to it and see what happens. So that's where we are. And that came out of Rome. What was this? Hey, who remembers the song by Albert Hammond called "It Never Rains in Southern California"? Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. That song, it seems like it never rains in Southern California, but man, it pours. And that's exactly what happens here. We go forever. When I say forever, I mean like 9-10 months where it seems like there's almost no rain. And then whew, it all comes down around the wintertime, and it comes down hard. And sometimes we've had it rain just full force, hard as it can, for um, 12 to 18 hours, hence a lot of flash flooding. So hence that song, it seems it never rains in Southern California, but man, it pours. That's a very poignant song. As I recall, it's about so many people who come out to Los Angeles to pursue their dreams, and they get their hearts broken. And that's the gist of what I got from that song. Somebody who came to California with his dreams, came to LA, Hollywood. I've had psychics tell me that's why when you go into downtown Hollywood, you feel so much strange energy and so many entities, because it's Hollywood goes back more than 100 years. The movie industry here goes back more than 100 years. And you've got, as going back to the days of the silent pictures, people got it in their heads when they saw these movies in their hometown theaters and learned they were made in Hollywood, California. Everybody wanted to come out here. People wanted to be stars. They wanted to be writers. They wanted to be directors. They wanted to be set designers. They wanted to work in the studios. You name it. And there was just a finite number of those jobs available, especially for stars. It just what was that line in the original 1937 A Star Is Born? Janet Gaynor, who her granny gives her money to come out to Hollywood, and she flounders for quite a while, and she applies at Central Casting, and this well-meaning woman working at the disc says, "Honey, let me show you something." Takes her to the switchboard room where it's all these operators. "Sorry, no work today, no work today, no work today, no work today." And the operator says to Janet Gaynor, "Do you realize your chances are about 1 in 100,000?" And of course, Janet Gaynor says, "Well, maybe I am that 1 in 100,000." But a lot of people do come here. And I say here because I live about 15-minute drive from downtown Hollywood, and you do feel the energy. Some have theorized it's all these souls, all these entities, people who had their hearts broken very badly, and they're still circling around Hollywood. They're still here. And of course, a lot of those souls ended up in alcoholism in their lifetimes, alcoholism, drug abuse, suicide. There's a lot of that feeling around the community. Sorry to get off the track there, but you made me think about that when you mentioned that song, Andy. Let's see. Oh yeah, about washing the car and it raining the next day. I finally bought a car cover for my car. I got so tired of having to wash it all the time. And here, even though it may not rain, our air is so dirty. You can just have your car sitting outside in the parking lot, freshly washed. 3 days later, filthy, just filthy. Not even if you drive the car. So I finally just put a cover on it. Let's see. People are talking about their local regions here. What was this? Renee, I'm at high 93 days of 90 in Pennsylvania, then 50 for 3 days. Oh, yeah, I know that schizophrenic weather. We've had it here. Uh, Mother Nature needs to make up her mind. Yeah, Ohio. Yeah, it seems like, oh, Stephanie, happy Memorial Day. Oh, it's so sweet of you to join. Thank you. I hope you and Tammy have had a beautiful Memorial Day. I was just saying it kind of nothing for me. I've just been here working on things, making calls for Dr. Whimsy, working on some of my artwork, housework. Nothing special, though. I may go meet with some friends after I finish this show. Andy, yes, your dad was in the Army Reserves. Well, appreciate your dad's service there. And of course, as I said earlier, this is a day to honor our veterans and what they have made possible for all of us. Yeah. What was this word? Favorite hotel breakfast buffets? Yeah. Oh, the Lord, it's so weird when I was asked what were my favorite meals in Rome. I have to include those breakfast buffets at my hotel. They were just incredible. And in fact, every hotel, even the ones where I was in London and when I was in Cardiff, Wales, all of them had just the best breakfast buffets. Here in America, I'm thinking back to when I met my sister, who lives in Colorado. We decided to meet in Arizona as a halfway point, and she found this little quote unquote hotel. That's using the word mildly, but it promised you a breakfast. Well, that breakfast, you were doing good to get coffee. Let's see, you had cereal, you had a little plastic thing of granola, and you had a choice of an apple or a banana. Oh, yes, and you could also put some bread in a toaster. That was your breakfast. And that seems to be a lot of the cases here in American hotels and motels, but not in Europe. Those were I was very, very happy with those buffets. Andy, how's the spaghetti and meat sauce there? I notice lots of places people like to fill up on bread before the meal even comes. Well, first of all, that's because the bread is so damn good. It's such good bread. And you know what? I oddly enough, I was going to say I didn't have spaghetti. I do remember Whimsy couldn't finish all of hers. She had some spaghetti. So I did have some bites of her spaghetti. And if I had been in Rome and Florence longer, I definitely would have had more. But I had some really good pasta combinations, and I do love spaghetti, but I love the bread also. And the wine. Oh my God, I miss it. I miss it. I definitely left a big piece of my heart in Rome. Big piece of my heart is there, and I got to get back there. And I don't know how or when. I certainly can't afford to go there now, but somehow I'm going to manifest it again. I got to get back there. And if I could go back there, I'd say now, but they're going through the start of a heat wave, maybe around fall when the weather cools. I'm going to put it out there in the universe. Let's see how good my manifesting skills are. But I got to get back there. I got to see the things that I didn't get to see this time. Let's see. I'm having a fun time collecting 45 records on eBay. Yeah, Andy, you had mentioned that last week, and I told you my sister used to do that when she was in high school, and I don't know what became of all those 45 she had, because she had like these storage bins with so many of them. Let me go back to the comments here. I think I skipped over something here, and I'm really trying hard not to do this. I want to be respectful to each of you. What was this? Oh boy, I did miss some comments here. So sorry. When I scroll here, sometimes it skips down. I don't know why it does that. Oh boy, I got to go way back here. How did I go down so far? Okay, see about the spaghetti. Diane Fab, what was my favorite memory, a moment from this recent trip? Now, again, that's a hard one to question because that's like choosing amongst your children. I could talk for an hour about my favorite memories because I cannot tell you a specific one. I mean, I certainly was deeply impressed with Cardiff, Wales. I'd never been to Wales before. Beautiful, just being in nature in Wales. It was like walking through a storybook. You know, it literally looked like the illustrations you would see in a fairy tale storybook. You know, the way the trees looked, the flowers, you could feel the energy. They say it's filled with fairies, and I believe it. I believe it. I felt a very whimsical, magical energy there. Um, I certainly loved London, going back to Buckingham Palace again, but just Rome. To pick a favorite memory, I've got to really sort through this. I'm still watching through my videos and my pictures, and because so much happened that it almost went by like a blur. And now I'm trying to dissect it and like, what all did I do? Like when you asked me about the meals, I had to think, what did I eat this night and that night? But I certainly, that first day in Rome, you know, being in the taxi cab, going from the airport and just seeing it all for the first time. I just felt like a kid in a candy store. And then going to the hotel, and I opened my window. I even posted a picture on Facebook. The view out my window was like, oh my God, this is like something out of a movie. And then going across the street to a restaurant, having that fabulous ravioli. And then the next morning, the next morning I went to the Vatican, and nothing prepares you for the majesty of the Vatican. You know, Stephanie, I don't know if you remember when you went to Rome, if you went to the Vatican, but I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say it takes your breath away, because I went, I literally gasped when I went in there. Just the scale, the magnitude, and to be surrounded with all of that art. And we're talking some of the greatest, literally some of the greatest art in the world. And I remember just walking through the Vatican Square, looking up at the window where only a year before Pope Leo had walked out when he had just been announced as the new Pope. And I was thinking a year ago, I had no idea that I was going to be actually there looking up at that very window. And then walking up the steps to the top of the dome of the basilica. You know, it's 551 steps. And we're talking like narrow little steps that get smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's like my fear of heights and my claustrophobia combined together all at once. And there's no turning back. Once you start going, you've got that whole line of people behind you. You can't turn around and go back. You got to keep going till you make it to the top. And the walls, I swear, just start closing in and getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you're squeezing your way through up the steps. And you just keep walking and walking and walking. And then you reach the top and you have that gorgeous view of the city. That's the payoff. Now, you just want to stay up there as long as you can. But then you have to walk back down. Those 561 steps down. Little easier, but not by much. By the time I got to the bottom, I was like, I'm not 18 anymore. But then get to the bottom of the steps and then walk right inside the Vatican. My first time, I mean, just walking in there and seeing those high ceilings and this dome that I had just been to the top of, looking up at that dome, how high it was. And I was reading that part of the design was to make you feel like you were literally looking up to the heavens. When you were looking up to that dome, you were looking up to heaven. And I mean, it came close to moving me to tears. And I don't know if I was ready to cry because I just walked down 561 steps, but it was also just seeing all of that art. And, you know, it was art that I had studied in college. I was an art major. So one of the things I had to do was study art history. And I've certainly had the experience of being in the Louvre a number of times and seeing a lot of the pieces that I had studied. Well, I just was not ready for the Vatican. So that might be one of my greatest memories there. But then it went beyond that, walking out of the Vatican as the sun was setting. And I saw a little stand selling gelato. And a friend of mine from Italy had said, you got to do the gelato in Italy. He said, he's lived in America for about 10 years now. And he said, in all the years I've been here, I have never once found a place that can make authentic Italian gelato. They may say it's authentic, it's not. And I have to say it's the most delicious gelato I'd ever had in my life. And so I had that wonderful memory of the sunset over the Vatican and eating my cone of gelato. And I just walking through those streets as the sun was setting, and I explored a few little shops, and then I was tired and I took a taxi back to my room. So that's certainly a very special memory there. But you asked me what's my most special memory. I could just say almost every day. Every day, the next day, walking to the Colosseum, walking to the Trevi Fountain, stumbling upon the Pantheon by mistake. It's just beautiful. Beautiful. I can't wait to go back there. As I said, my heart is there. I left part of my heart there in Rome, very much so. So much so, I look at the weather on my phone. I think, oh, it's 9 hours ahead there. It's night there now, or it's morning. I just feel very much a part of it. Kelly, how were the desserts? Whoa. Again, I should have gained 30 pounds while I was there. It's just a miracle all that walking succeeded. I had fabulous desserts. And, some of the best desserts, oddly enough, were at the breakfast buffet at the hotel. And they certainly did not stop me from taking my cloth napkin and taking some desserts and wrapping them up in my napkin and taking them up to my room, where I can assure you they did not go to waste. They made wonderful evening snacks. I ate so decadently while I was there, but that's what you're supposed to do on vacation. What was this word in Italy? Be prepared to have the fresh baked bread with flavored olive oil instead of butter. Yeah. Heidi, what was I doing on death row? Oh, yeah, I am so bad. No, just kidding about death row. Just saying that if I were ever there, my last meal, that's one of those trivial questions we get asked. What would you choose as your last meal on death row? Well, I would definitely include calamari, and I'm sure pizza and spaghetti would be in there, among other things. What was this, Andy? Oh, wait, I think I answered that about it seems it never rains in Southern California. Yeah, I mentioned that. What was this word? I had a cat decades ago, but I got diagnosed with a cat dander allergy. Couldn't separate from her, but after she was no more pets. Had to be practical. Yeah, I am very, very lucky I do not have cat allergies. That would be a very sad allergy for me because I adore cats. I love dogs too, don't get me wrong, but out of necessity, I've had cats for like the last 35 years. It's mostly because dogs are just, they're a lot of work. And it's hard, and you live by yourself and you also have apartments where they restrict what kind of pets you can have. Dogs have not fit into my life. So it's been cats, and I just love them. When somebody says to me, "Ugh, I don't like cats," well, then I want to say, "Well, maybe I don't like you either." It's like, I think Mark Twain said that. He said, if you like cats, I like you. You're my kind of person. In fact, did you know Mark Twain loved cats so much? When he did a lot of traveling as an author, he would rent cats. When he'd be staying in a place for a few weeks, he would rent people's cats to stay with him. That's how much he loved them and needed to have them around him. My Sasha just did not do well while I was away, and I've often thought, if I ever did travel extensively or did make a semi move to Italy, which again, I'm just saying that's way off in the future, I'd have to figure out a way to take Sasha with me. I learned that she does not do well being left alone. I don't know. She might do okay for a week, but 2 weeks, that was too much. That turned out to be a problem. Andy, speaking cats, is Sasha sleeping? Yes, she is. She's right over here in the corner. I know better than to wake her up when she's peacefully sleeping, especially what happened here a couple of weeks ago when I was trying to do readings for people, and she was just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and knocking cards on the floor and everything. Let's see. I'm going to go through some more comments here. Talking about the road pictures. You have Bing Crosby and Bob Hope when Whimsy proposed our going to Morocco. And there was a part of me that would have done it. I was like, Morocco? Okay. Broaden my horizons. You know, at this point in my life, I need to see the world. I need to see places. I need to challenge myself, shake things up a bit. Or yeah, considering what kind of folks Crosby and Hope were off stage. I've had to learn to love Lucy in spite of her sticking with Hope. Well, I mean, that's a complex topic right there that I could spend a lot of time talking on. Crosby and Hope were frankly not as nice in person as their public images. In my acting class with Dee Wallace, one of the students in the class that I got to know quite well was a woman who was married to Bing Crosby, one of Bing Crosby's grandsons. And I'll protect her privacy and not give her name, but she had some pretty horrible things to say about grandfather Bing. Apparently, he was a very abusive man. He had a serious drinking problem. And as she put it to me, she said, look, 2 of his sons committed suicide and his first wife drank herself to death. What does that tell you? She actually used the word monster to describe Bing Crosby, but I'm just going from her account. You know, I know one nasty story about Bing Crosby. Sorry to bring up this because I'm trying to avoid negativity, but he used to tell people who worked for him that, look, if you'll work for less money, I'll put you in my will. I'll put you in my will. I'll leave you a lot of more money if you agree to less money now. And there were people who actually fell for that. Guess what? He didn't leave them yet in his will. And there was also a story about Bing Crosby accidentally killing someone in a hit and run accident with his car. He was drunk driving and he hit a pedestrian. And his studio, I think it was Paramount, because Bing was a valuable property to the studio, they used all their connections with the LAPD to cover up the story and keep it suppressed. So I read that. Bob Hope, I can't think of specifics, but I've heard some people who work for him say he was not the nicest man. But then I want to balance this out. A friend of mine who used to do interviews, I think it was for E! Entertainment, she got to interview Bob Hope at his home, and she said he was very sweet, very lovely to her, and very encouraging. So what can I say? And I want to be fair. You know, if I don't want to just spout off negative stories and not have something to back it up with, and I don't want to denigrate them. Now, as far as learning to love Lucy in spite of her sticking with Hope, she and Bob Hope were very close friends. You got to remember, they also made 4 movies together. They did a number of television specials. They did have quite a fondness and mutual respect for one another. And I think in a case with Lucy, you know, this was a very savvy woman. This is a woman with many show business friends, and she was no fool. She knew the reality of the business. She knew the reality of people in the business. She knew her own reality. None of them were saints. So I think that was part of her thinking. You know, maybe that was part of her allegiance with Bob Hope, for whatever that's worth. what was this? Okay, Honey Christensen, Bing during World War II, went to Patton's army. My ex-husband's grandpa was a captain for Patton, and Bing had all the guys from Washington State grouped together for a photo. We love that photo with Bing. Well, and I want to balance things out. He and Bob Hope did do a lot of good. The World War II, they gave so much of themselves, put their own lives in tremendous jeopardy, traveling to all regions of the war fronts to entertain the troops. I mean, they really put their lives on the line. Another person who did that was Martha Raye. Martha Raye was actually honored later in life for her contributions. The Bette Midler movie For the Boys was said to be loosely based on Martha Raye's life and giving of the troops. And this is a woman who went into some of the most dangerous areas. I mean, areas where there were bombs being dropped and bullets firing, and she didn't care. She would get out there. She would put up a tent, a little pup tent, and a sleeping bag, and cook over the fire along with the soldiers. And she would sing to them, and she would dance. She would entertain them. She would tell jokes. She was honored later. I believe she was buried with military honors, I believe, at Fort Bragg. I think I incorrectly said Arlington National Cemetery. It was Fort Bragg she was buried, but she was buried with full military honors for her contributions. She was also given by the Motion Picture Academy the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award. She was a great lady. I had a friend who knew Martha Raye very well. And I'm going to, while we're on the subject, because women often don't get mentioned for the contributions, Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich also went out on the war front, and she went into the thick of the battlefields to entertain the soldiers. And in her case, she was really putting herself in danger because Hitler had a bounty on her head. Being a German, she was looked upon as a traitor. And Hitler had some bounty on her head, like a huge reward for her capture. And he planned to shave her head, strip her naked, and put her in a cage in the Berlin Zoo on full display. And Dietrich knew that. And she admitted she was terrified, but she was brave. And she went out there for the soldiers. I think she was also rewarded. And Josephine Baker was also recognized for her wartime contributions. And I think she was, I believe the French gave her the Legion of Honor. And I don't know if she was honored by the Americans, but she actually served as a spy. She would, as an entertainer traveling around the troops, her sheet music was encoded with messages in the notes. It was a code in the sheet music, and she was risking her life. So it's interesting to mention people like that because the topic came up. Ward. Well, Saint Teresa of Avila started out as a Jewish girl who became a nun. I'll mention that to Whimsy. It was so sweet. Whimsy was saying, I'm a Jewish girl and I want to be a nun. I love, she was so taken with the beauty of the churches and the spirituality. And that for me was a lot of fun to see. Kelly, thank you for joining. It's time for you to charge your phone. Randy, well, I want none of that. Okay, let me go through the comments here. It's getting a little late here. Let me see if I can cover things. I'm sorry if I'm going through these a little fast right now. Fresh garlic bread, mentions about that. MacArthur Park by Richard Harris. Yeah, that's a great song. Why is it that Italy doesn't have vampires? I don't know. Why is that? Lucy Ward, my papa was in the U.S. Army Theater in World War II. Renee Ahmed, my dad was in the Army for 30 years. Good that we can honor your fathers. Yes, grateful for their service. Okay, Okay, let me trying to do this without making these comments skip. Okay, let me go back here. It did skip on me. I got to find where I was. Okay, I'm so sorry about this. I'm trying to find my place. That's probably when you're on live like this. Oh boy, I'm just really jumped through the comments here. So when I miss comments, please know it's just an accident and it's not deliberate. Oh, the Oracle Whimsy. Whimsy, you're here. We've had people asking about you. Okay, let me go back. Let me go back on the comments here. I'm obviously really skipped here. Family has a lot of it. Andy, you're collecting your 45s. Yeah, Andy, I wish you well with that. eBay's probably a good place for you to look for your 45s. And Whimsy, yes, Cardiff is amazing. Whimsy, you heard me say in almost every place we went, I want to move here. I want to stay here. And you, of course, were giving me the most incredible suggestions on how I could realistically do that. But I mean, we both loved Cardiff. Cardiff was so enchanting and magical and whimsical. And yeah, Whimsy, I don't know how much of the show you saw, but I was talking about this earlier and how you are feeling better now on the wonderful spiritual course that we are taking with our show on the Oracle of Whimsy on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific. Oh no, yes, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Almost got that mixed up there. Yeah, we're very, very excited about the directions we're taking. And a lot of this is an outgrowth of how spiritually charged we were in Europe, especially in Rome. And I was saying how you said, oh, I want to be a nun. I'm a Jewish girl, but I want to be a nun, and I thought that was so sweet, Whimsy, the way you were just so enchanted with the churches we were in and the nuns and the prayer and the beautiful spirituality. It had an effect on both of us for the better. And Whimsy, I also mentioned earlier about that card I pulled for Roma when you were asking me about different cities, and we both agreed unconditional love, romance, just romance for the art, the food, the culture, the history, the spirituality, and of course, Divine Mothers. We saw all of the beautiful festivities for Mother Mary. I don't know if you saw that part earlier. Yes, Whimsy, the food was wonderful. And you probably heard me saying about how even the breakfast buffets that I just loaded up on to fortify myself for the day, and how I would take a napkin and take some desserts back to my room. Nothing went to waste. Oh yeah, Andy, you were asking about Whimsy's cat, Mila. Yeah, beautiful Mila. I used to cat sit for Mila when Whimsy used to live here in Los Angeles. And Mila used to play tricks on me. Like that time I went to, it's everybody's nightmare, I think, when you're pet sitting, to lose their pet. Isn't that like the ultimate fear? And I went to Whimsy's, opened the door, Mila shot out the door, ran off, and I'm like, Mila, no. I spent something like 9 hours trying to find her, and I couldn't leave. I thought, I can't lose your cat, so I stayed at your place for like 9 hours, kept the door open. Finally, Mila just walks in the door. Hi, where's my food? Where's my water? Dumb human. She just came back, but she was manipulating me. She didn't want me to go. You more or less tuned into that and picked up on that. They are conniving little creatures. They're very smart little creatures. We love them. Renee Ahmed, being a military brat was great. Got to experience from living all over the world. I have friends who were military brats who've told me the same thing. I've heard consistently the hardest thing, though, was you would get close with friends and then have to move away and leave them, make new friends, and then you'd get close and then have to leave. And I've had people say that was just really heartbreaking in their childhood. And that kind of separation stays with you for the rest of your life. I don't know if you had that experience yourself, Renee. Andy, it's Nichuk has Sasha, Joyce has Maya, Anastasia has Galaxy, and Whimsy has, well, Whimsy has Mila. Yeah, Anastasia has her Galaxy. You know, she's shown Galaxy on her show, her three-legged cat, her tripod cat. And of course, Anastasia was coming over here to take care of Sasha for me. And I thought that was going to be enough because she loves Anastasia. I thought, well, that'll solve my problem. She won't feel abandoned or alone. She'll have a familiar person. No. Anastasia came over here, sent me a video of Sasha. And she was going, hi, Sasha. Hi, Sasha. Let me pet you. And Sasha going, singing. You know, she was a little bitch. But Sasha also got very sad. And Whimsy, you were a remote viewing Sasha, and it was getting pretty distressing. You were picking up that she was taking it very personally, and she was racking her little kitty cat brain, thinking, what have I done to drive him away? Why did he leave me? And of course, that made me feel terrible. And I made some videos on my phone reassuring Sasha. Sasha would play them. They would calm her down some. We tried homeopathic remedies. We tried rescue remedy in her water. That collectively helped, but nothing was like when I finally got home. And Whimsy, I saw that sweet little video you made of us talking about Sasha, and that picture where I swear Sasha looked like she had tears in her eyes. If a cat could cry, she was crying. What was this, Heidi? The tiny walls closing in on you is giving me a panic attack. Maria Milo, yes, the European breakfast buffets are delicious and offer such a variety of fruit and cheese and eggs and cereal and coffee and tea and bread and pastry. Oh my God, I miss it. I often skipped lunch while vacationing in Europe. Same thing here. I'd eat a huge breakfast. I would load up particularly on protein, lots of eggs. I was very mindful of that. And sure enough, all the walking I did, I rarely needed lunch. Maybe I'd get a snack like a Kona gelato or something like that. But no, I was generally okay until dinner time. Oh, yeah, St. Peter's Square, and thinking of being in the world's tiniest nation within Italy, just on the other side of the colonnade. Vatican. The Vatican just exceeded every possible expectation I ever could have had. Everything. I'm still blown away. And I think about it. The sheer scale of it, the grandeur, but at the same time, the pure humility of it. You know, I recommend it to anybody at least once in your life. In fact, I've got a nephew who's going to Rome later this summer. I already suggested the hotel Whimsy and I stayed into him, and also a high school friend of mine. She's going to Tuscany, and I said, you've got to go to Rome at least 3 or 4 days and take the train to Florence like I did. I said, I swear to you, I promise you on my life, you will not regret this. It will stay with you forever. It will be in your heart forever. You will never be the same person after doing it. Whimsy, thank you. Thank you, Whimsy. I am so heartfelt grateful. Let's see. Yeah, and of course, people are still acknowledging our wonderful soldiers, our people in the military. That is what we're supposed to remember with this day. Yeah, and you just got the Lee Greenwood of his great patriotic song from eBay. Yeah, I'm proud to be an American. Maria Milo, have you visited the island of Thera in Italy? No, I haven't. Also called Santa Erin. It is so beautiful there. Well, I certainly don't doubt it being beautiful. Ever since I got back from Italy, I'm looking at all the other Italian cities and locations. I've been looking at them on YouTube Instagram and researching, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to live there or at least be there for a month or two. There's so many places to see, so much beauty. I, I think of all the European countries I've been to. Yeah, I mean, Spain and France I adore, but I'm really thinking Italy. Italy is the one that I love the most. Sage Cave of Wonders. Clearly, you have lived in Rome in a past life. Oh yeah, I even mentioned that to Whimsy. Well, I felt that way actually when I was in Venice, and I felt it in Florence, and I felt it in Rome. There is no question. I've lived past lives there. I know that's why I feel such a bond with the land and with the culture. And it was, when Whimsy and I were pondering all of the different places, do we stay in England? Do we take side trips to the continent of Europe? And as I said, I wanted Whimsy to be happy. She wanted me to be happy. So we were going back and forth, back and forth. But yeah, my heart wanted to go to Italy. I just felt such a calling. And I knew it was important. And Whimsy, I think maybe you even see it now, why we had to go there. It was important. It was like a reset. It was like a reboot for us. But yeah, it was very much a connection. And, I will say this also, I have been really getting back into my drawing and my painting since I got back from Rome, because I was so inspired by the art. And I know I've been an artist there before, and I'm trying to keep up with the comments here, but I have a piece of art I'm actually going to show you. Might as well do it right now while we're on the topic, because, last week on the show, I read one of my guided readings from Amelia Earhart. And I thank you for the response for that. And I'm still putting together a couple of videos that are going to further extend that. The reading that I did of what Amelia Earhart had to say to me. But I want to combine it with my art, because I could feel her soul so present with me that I did this portrait of her. In fact, I'm still working on it. I'm still adding details. But if you look closely, particularly at the eyes, that's one of the things I excel in, is eyes in portraits, because I do feel the soul of the person speak to me as I work. And it is true. The cliche, the eyes are the windows of the soul. That's where you feel their soul. And I always try to capture that in the eyes. Even if you'll note, I even abstracted the eyes a bit. It's not like a literal interpretation, because I was more about capturing the energy of Amelia Earhart, the energy of her soul. I was even trying to capture that energy in her windblown hair. If you look at pictures of Amelia Earhart, her hair was more often than not a mess. It was she had just taken her aviator cap off, or her hair was blowing in the wind. And this is a woman, I don't think, who gave two figs about her coiffure or her makeup. I just don't think that interested her. This was a woman who was very much an adventurer, an aviator, a writer, quite a soul. When she came to me, it was just so powerful. And so what I have done, I have been video recording the stages of making this, and it's not entirely finished, because with the way I work, I put layers upon layers upon layers. So, I paint very thin, translucent watercolors. So that I will probably take this even further, but I wanted to show what I had. I wanted to have something. I'm going to have a video about the making of this drawing, and then I'm also going to have a video further elaborating upon the channeled reading that I did with her last week, because I was rather proud of that. I want to do a lot more of those on here as part of what I do with the show, and individual videos, my channeled messages. And I've read a lot of them on Whimsy's show, on the Oracle of Whimsy. But I've been venturing away from the familiar. I have a lot of familiar ones that have been coming to me for years. A lot of the old Hollywood stars, Lucille Ball especially. But as Whimsy knows, I've ventured into some more historical figures, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Eleanor Roosevelt, Harry Truman, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon. But this was one that just jumped to me. I wasn't planning on Amelia Earhart. I was, oddly enough, in my kitchen, just getting some things out of the fridge, and all of a sudden I heard Amelia Earhart. I want to talk. I want to talk. And I don't claim that I'm anything special or anything like that, because I think what I do is something that any of us can do. It's just I've been doing it for longer. I've been doing it well over 35 years. I'm very, I think, self-trained in this to a point where I'm comfortable with it. I'm comfortable with what's familiar and authentic, and I'm good at testing it to see what's real. And one of my biggest checks and balances is, as I said on Whimsy's show, I clear the slate. I don't want any Chuck coming into this. I just wipe the slate clean, and I usually sit down with pen and paper. Nothing fancy like a trance or anything like that. I just sit with pen and paper, or I will sit with my keyboard and start typing. And sometimes typing works a little better because I can type faster than I can write. I have very loopy handwriting, but she wanted to talk, and maybe that's because I've been doing more and more of these publicly on here on YouTube. And souls know that I'm very respectful of them. I will never exploit a soul. I will never exploit for my own purposes. I will never do anything that I feel is against their wishes. I always ask for permission. And I ask permission throughout. Is it okay for me to say this? Is this okay? Is this what you want? But my biggest checks and balance is when I receive things after I've cleared the slate. I get stuff that I know I never would have made up. I never would have said. So, and oftentimes it shocks me. And some of the things Amelia Earhart, I read it last week, and I'm going to read it again. And not now. I'm going to read it in a separate video. And of course, I have the portrait that I just did of her, where I was also channeling her spirit here. That's why I wanted you to see the eyes in particular, because I feel like I really captured her soul here in her eyes. But there was even an energy to her hair, or the way it blew. I was trying to capture that energy within her hair. This is a very charismatic soul, the tremendous power and energy in her soul. And if you'll recall, what I was getting last week was she was saying, I'm a lot more famous because of what happened. She said, I left the world with a puzzle. I left the world with an enigma. And she was almost saying, don't you like it better that way? Isn't it more interesting that I left the world in a mystery, in an enigma? And she was even talking about her husband, G.P. Putnam. And I later looked a lot of this up afterwards, to confirm it. But she was basically saying, well, he was the one who was the big showman. He was the one who was always sending me off on these dangerous journeys because it sold books and it sold magazines, and it reinforced my image. And she was saying, my husband probably got off on the fact that I disappeared, never to be found again. She was a little tongue-in-cheek about that, but she was serious also. And she dispelled, so that's the right word for it, dispelled a lot of the conspiracies. There have been a lot, like stories that she was captured by the Japanese and kept in a Japanese prison camp. What were the other ones? That she was a spy for Roosevelt. She was on a secret spy mission, and she had to stage her death. And I mean, ridiculous things. And she was like, oh, please. No, I was not captured by the Japanese. I was not on a spy mission. It was just an ugly, gritty, very human death. And she was more or less saying to me that her plane didn't just go down in the Pacific and crash, which would have been a quick death. There's that other theory about nearby Gardner Island, because there have been some artifacts that are believed, could have been hers. Like they found a sole of a shoe that matched the type of shoe she wore, her size. They found a jar of freckle cream from the 1930s that she was known to use, some things like that. And right down to the fact of finding a skeleton where the bones have been lost, but they were documented at the time. And at the time, they were believed to have been a man's. Experts years later looked at the notes and the drawings, said, no, this was a Western woman. So there's plenty of evidence, Gardner Island, and that the plane may have just washed out to the ocean. Well, that's when she came to me. She didn't name the island. She just said the island. And the evidence was, she basically saying my plane was washed out to sea. And she said it was an ugly, gritty human death. Well, there was no water, no food. It was unbearably hot. It would have been a torturous death for her and her aviator, but that's basically what she was saying to me. And I found it also interesting. She was saying, well, your modern technology is catching up to where you are trying to find my plane. Well, Mother Nature is always one step ahead. They were more or less implying it's not going to be found. It's all washed out to sea. She died a very human death on Gardner Island. That's basically what she was saying to me in that. And I looked up later about her husband, G.P. Putnam. He was like a showman, the snake oil salesman. He did put his wife in a lot of danger many times. Sell books and magazines. And I just was surprised when I heard Amelia Earhart actually saying, don't you love the mystery? Don't you love the enigma that I left behind? Wasn't it much more interesting this way? See, I never would have made up stuff like that. So that was what I got. But I just wanted to show off my artwork and show my portrait of Amelia Earhart. And I better get back to my comments here, and I've got to wrap this up soon. Okay, pardon me if I speed through the comments here, because I'm running over here. Let's see here. It's Randy DeMille. I just found out about peppermint oil is great for the brain. Yes. Well, I was going to say, the stimulant effect of peppermint oil, but also rosemary oil. Sniffing rosemary oil can help your cognitive ability. And there have even been some studies saying it may be helpful for people with Alzheimer's and dementia to sniff rosemary oil. We're going to talk about this on the show tomorrow. Whimsy, I've been doing my research, and I'm going to be ready to talk about this subject tomorrow as we approach brain health, mental health, and approaching it from a naturopathic point of view. I'm very excited about it. I love what Whimsy and I are doing right now. Andy, that's a good comment. Randy, it's fresh breath, and now it's fresh mind. That's good. Yes, and Heidi, what you said, peppermint essential oil helps migraines. Yes, you're saying it as I was about to say. You can actually get little applicator bottles little rollerball bottles where you can put it on your temples, and it can help with migraines. Yes. In fact, I'll include that in the notes for the show tomorrow. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, Jim, that is said about being sons. Very sad. Oh yeah, that Ward, that also happened with John Houston about a car involved in a fatality that got hushed up. I don't know if it's entirely true, but I read that may have also happened with Clark Gable and his studio MGM hushed it up. This movie studios had a lot of ties with the LAPD, and if a star was big enough, gotta remember these were commodities. They made a lot of money for the studios, so they were very protective of their investments. There were a lot of cover-ups. In fact, MGM had a man named Eddie Mannix, who was known as "quote unquote" the fixer. Like he was involved when Jean Harlow's second husband committed suicide. And before the police got there, they combed through the house and they found a note a note that more or less alluded to his impotency, believe possible homosexuality, and they intercepted that because that would have, got to remember, in those days that was very scandalous for a star and that would destroy a career. So I think Eddie Mannix was part of that. Yes, Sword, that was Angelica Houston's dad. And also, John Huston was married to my very dear friend Evelyn Keyes. He was her third husband. Evelyn had a lot of wonderful old Hollywood stories when they were together. I've told a few here on the show before, but let me go through the comments here. Was Walter in a Bogart movie? Yes, Treasure of the Sierra Madre. That was Walter Huston. In fact, Walter Huston won a supporting actor Oscar for that. And John Huston directed his dad to an Oscar, directed his daughter Angelica to an Oscar-winning performance also. And it was said that when he was going to direct Treasure of the Sierra Madre, his dad approached him and said, "Hey, you got a role for the old man?" Did he ever? Ward mentioning about Martha Raye suing Bette Midler over the movie. Yeah, it's true, but it was thrown out of court. Yeah, we were mentioning about peppermint and tarot-coated peppermint oil, soft gels, because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. Renee, got to go. Well, thank you for being with us. Yeah, I'm trying to get through these comments quickly because I do have to go. Let's see, and it skipped on me here. Let me go back. Boy, I don't know why it does this. Okay, now we're back. All right. Martha Raye was awesome. Renee. Of course, Josephine Baker. Oh, yeah. I know the actress Lynn Whitfield, who played Josephine Baker in a made-for-HBO movie. She won an Emmy for it. And she said Josephine Baker's spirit was very much present on the set. So much so that if she didn't like something that had been filmed, lights would go out, cameras would stop working, she would stop the production. That was according to Lynn Whitfield, who told me that personally. Oh, thank you, J Cat Lady. I thank you. I love telling stories on here. Chuck, did life seem more real during your trip? Yes. It felt more basic, more real. It felt like this is the way life is supposed to be lived. In that respect, yeah, it felt a lot more real. It's like we get so caught up in our day-to-day life of just survival that we forget to really savor the great treasures of life, such as Rome, which is one of our great treasures. And Andy, stories on John or Walter Huston? I do, but Andy, it's getting late and I've got to go. I can tell a lot of stories, but particularly from Evelyn Keyes. I will do on a future show. Remind me, please. The Heidi Christian, please know that I don't ever expect you to read every single comment. There's a lot to keep up with, and we love and appreciate you very much. Well, thank you for saying that. I just tried my best to be respectful to people on here. I do try. And Whimsy can tell you this. We go through the same thing when we do our two shows. Is sometimes there are just so many comments. It's impossible. So many questions, so many requests. It's just like when we were on the trip. Whimsy, you know this, we fretted over this. We had so many requests from our viewers. They're like, go to Stonehenge, go to Edinburgh, go to St. Paul's Cathedral, go to Big Ben, and Tower of London. We were really, really trying our best, but it was humanly impossible to get to everything. And we hope that people will forgive us for that. I mean, we still have videos to show. We still have a lot of pictures and video. Let's see. Let me get some other comments here real fast. Or the maps, paintings, sculptures, and documents on display in the Vatican Museum. I didn't even get in the Vatican Museum. There wasn't time, and the lines were so long. So I just went straight for the Vatican itself and the dome and the square. And that was more than enough to take up an entire day. I had to make a lot of choices like that because it basically amounted, do I spend 2-3 hours in a line, or do I take that time and just actually go out and just see the city? That was the attitude I had to take with Florence. Why I did not go to the museum where the statue of David is, because the line was just so long and I didn't want to waste the precious few hours I had. And I did get to see one of the two copies. I saw the copy of the David that's on the actual pedestal where the original had stood before they brought it inside to protect it from the elements. J Cat Lady, take your kitty cat with you overseas. You could stay a month or so. I'd love to. If I did, I would take my kitty cat with me. Yeah. Do you keep getting back? You can take a flight that allows the kitty cat to be on with you. It would have, Whimsy and I talked about this. It would have to be something where just have to get a seat for the cat, carrier and an actual seat. Because I don't want to do that thing where you put them in the baggage compartment. I've heard too many horror stories, pressurization problems, temperature issues, too hot, too cold, pets dying. And I would just be on the flight fretting the entire 11 hours, wondering if my cat was going to be okay. So that's the way I would have to do it. Okay, let me get, was Jess Miskey. Hi there. I hope I say your name right. Jess Miskey, is that right? Chuck, that's beautiful. The eyes really are something. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're talking about Amelia Earhart painting. Thank you for recognizing that it's very clearly a channel. Thank you. That's why I wanted to show it. I wanted you to see the eyes, because I do, and even the movement of the hair, I really felt Amelia Earhart's energy. It was the same energy I was feeling when I received the channel message last week. And so I thought this would be a good 1-2 thing for me to present, to show the making of the art and the video message itself. I think she basically solved the mystery of what happened to her. She didn't really want to. At least in the beginning, she made me feel that way. I think she was teasing me a little bit. Like, oh, people love the mystery of this, the enigma. I left people with the greatest puzzle of the 20th century. But then she opened up to me, J Cat Lady, your reading of Amelia was wonderful. Thank you for saying that. That really means a lot to me, to have comments like that. Thank you. That encourages me to keep going with this. Oh, thank you for saying you love my channel. Thank you very much. Okay, Evelyn Keys, Scarlett O'Hara. Yeah, Jim, nothing. Evelyn Keyes, she was Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister, Sue Ellen, in Gone with the Wind. That was the title of her autobiography, Scarlett O'Hara's younger sister. Only I was one of the lucky people, because she loaned me her personal copy of the book. And I got to read it. And after a few chapters, get on the phone and talk to her and hear all the stuff she couldn't put in the book, or have her elaborate further upon it. Now, that was an ultimate autobiographical experience. Cat Lady, does the Italians take a very long lunch with the rest before they go back to work? Well, I've always heard that. Honestly, I did not witness it so much personally, because I was just so busy sightseeing and doing things and trying to cram in as much as I could in 3.5 days. But I have heard that's true. J. Kelly, never put them in the baggage compartment area. Always in the seat with you, beside you, under the seat. Yeah, I am 100% agreement there. That is the only way I would ever take Sasha with me. And even then, I don't know how she'd deal with it. I'd probably have to have her heavily sedated, but I would never put her in the baggage compartment. Never. I mean, that's not even an option. What was this, Andy's in back? I'm back. Say, Chuck, you talked about Judy Garland. Can we hear some stories from her co-stars in Wizard of Oz? Well, on a future show, Andy, I will. I mean, remind me, because I've got tons of stories. It's just, if I've got to get off soon, and I'd be on here for another 2 hours if I did that. But I love talking about Judy and the Wizard of Oz, and of course my friend Whimsy is a huge Judy Garland fan. Yeah, that was her title for Evelyn Keyes. I loved Evelyn Keyes. I miss that lady so much. She passed away in 2008, but I very much feel his spirit with me. Well, I'm going to go soon, but before I go, would anybody like me to pull a card for you? Anybody, would you like me to do a little mini reading for you or anything? I always promise that. And there's been so much to talk about on the show here. But I tell you what, I'll do a general, one card. What I got here was self-control. Self-control. I go by what jumps out of the deck. And I feel that self-control it's about discipline. It's about not letting the news affect you, not getting over anxious about things, getting in fear. Self-control means self-mastery. Taking the time to meditate, taking the time to pray, taking the time to channel, just like I was talking about what I do myself. I'm not saying necessarily you have to channel spirits or anything, but I do believe we all can channel messages. So it's about self-control. But the biggest hit I get from self-control is about keeping ourselves calm, level, grounded, even when things look insane. It's going to be okay. Just Mesquite, yes, please. I'm worried about my eldest son. Is he okay? Should I be as worried as I am? Now, without knowing circumstances here, should you be worried about your eldest son? Well, first thing I got was is definitely a priority for you. What I'm getting from that is, yes, you're perfect as a mother. Of course, he's a priority. It will always be a priority. And in that respect, yes, be worried. But I get more, what I'm hearing is more be concerned about your son, not so much as worried. Is he okay? Is he okay? Now I'm just going cold here because I don't know the circumstances. Is he okay? Just trying to see what's coming out here. I'm getting, I don't know, Jess, how is his self-esteem right now? Can you maybe answer me a little something here? This is what jumped out: self-esteem, self-worth, and when you see guardian angel, Archangel Michael, that's usually the angel you call upon to fight your battles for you. To call upon when you feel like you're in trouble. You can't do it on your own. But I'm getting like maybe there's something around his self-worth, self-esteem. Just Mesquite, you're saying very low. So is that what you're saying? His self-worth, his self-esteem? Are you confirming that? Because this is what came out. He's dealing with his self-esteem right now. And as I said earlier, it's very important for you to be concerned, not so much worried, but concerned for him. He's dealing with self-esteem. He needs to find some balance in his life around his self-worth, self-esteem. And I don't know, without knowing everything's going on here, I'm wondering if this is something where you can help in guiding him to find balance, to help his self-esteem, his self-worth. Flying blind here without knowing the whole thing. It's always interesting when I get community, because community just means people, means our community, means our world. I'm feeling like it would do him a lot of good to get out amongst people, friends, activities. I'm just saying this is what's coming up for me. He definitely needs balance with his self-esteem. I asked how he would find that, and I'm getting that he needs to be more out into the world, out with people, doing positive activities. Jess, is there anything you could add to that? Anything you could help me? Tell me if I'm on course with what I'm receiving. But it was just very interesting about the self-esteem, and you confirmed that is low. So that's definitely a concern. It definitely needs to be balanced. So he needs things that can balance, can reinforce him. help him with his confidence, help him with his self-worth. So maybe you can elaborate a little further there for me. Jasminski, he is 10. He has all kinds of issues: ADHD, ODD, anxiety. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's enormously challenging. You know, you're making me think when Whimsy and I were on the train. We were on the train to Cardiff. I had to think where we were going. We took so many trips, and we were on the train, and we saw a mother and his son, and he clearly had autism, and he was crying hysterically, just he was so frightened, and Whimsy, through her intuitive ability, was tapping into him, and she could feel that he was panicking because he was looking out the window and seeing all this moving action. It was like he was flying on a plane or something, and he was scared. And Whimsy was saying she wished the mother would just like cover his eyes, because the few times he would close his eyes, he would calm down. But my heart went out to him, because I realized children like that are often misunderstood. They're misinterpreted. Nobody knows what's going on inside their world. It takes extraordinary parents to recognize the needs of the child. But I don't know why. It's definitely something about balance and his self-esteem, his self-worth. And I think a lot of it is, you say he struggles with a social emotional relationship, but wants friends so badly. I think that's why I was drawn to the community card, getting out with people. And it needs to be, this is where it gets tricky, because it needs to be with people who understand these circumstances, like-minded people. I don't know if there are, where you are, if there are support groups, people like parents who have children in similar situations where you as parents can talk with each other. I don't know how it would work. This is outside of my expertise. I don't know how it would work to put children together with similar issues. I don't know how that would work out, but I'm sensing there's something about community, getting out, being with people. And I think that I was drawn to this card because I was feeling like that. I even said to you, something about him needing to be with, I don't know if I used the word friends, but being with people, being in activities, being in groups, it would do him so much good. He wants friends so badly, and he's probably very misunderstood. I get this myself because I was a very bullied kid. I was very bullied. I was the artsy little kid. I certainly had my own ADHD going on and things. And I just saw the world differently. And it really wasn't until I went to college and I went to art school and I was with fellow artists, actors, writers, musicians, dancers, who all said the same thing. We were never understood as children. We were looked at like freaks of nature. Nobody knew what to do with us. And I just wish there was a way you could get him into groups, into activities. I don't know what's available for you where you are, but I can see where he would struggle with social, emotional relationships, because he needs people who understand what's going on inside for him. And you made me think of that little boy with his mother on the train that Whimsy and I saw in Wales. And he was screaming in terror, and Whimsy was able to go inside his head and see where his fear was coming from. And yeah, you somehow you've got to find balance there. But just it's hard in Indiana. It's a red state, so we have to fight for resources. I kind of was sensing that. I don't know what you could find online. I don't know if you've tried to research that, or even if you could start out and find if there are support groups for parents. Start there and pull your ideas together and talk about this. And each of you can say, well, this is what I've done for my child that's worked. This is what hasn't worked. That is the gift of the internet. You know, it has opened our world up to communities where things like this never would be available any other way. But Jess, I know what you mean by red state. I know, and my heart goes out to you. But that's what I was just getting from the cards here. A need for the balance, a need to be with people, community, and maybe community could also mean what you're finding online. And maybe for you, just talking with other parents, communicating, that might be a place to start to see where you could go next for your child. And, you know, we've got, yes, just be concerned, but not worried. Not worried, because when you worry creates fear. You know, it creates anxiety. It can stir up things and obfuscate and make things worse. I think being concerned keeps you more grounded and more focused. Being concerned also says that you have faith, that there are answers, there are solutions. It can get better for you. You know, that's why I felt that's just what I heard from my guides, to tell you, be concerned and not so much worried, because you know, this is doable. There are many parents in your situation, many children with similar situations. It's just, you know, if you could communicate with them, work with them. Just, he struggles with telling the truth, so I don't know when he's being honest. I'm sure my worries are causing more issues with him. Yeah, that's what I was feeling. Sometimes feelings come to me in an abstract way, but I was just feeling negativity around worry, that's only going to make things worse. And you're right, your worrying could cause more issues with him. It might even be his need to lie, to fib, because he doesn't want to see you getting more upset or more worried. Or it's kind of like a domino effect. You know, it's a compounding thing. You know, as you get more worried, then it transfers to him, then it goes back to you, you know, and it ultimately it's not constructive, it's deconstructive. He struggles with telling the truth, so I don't know, and he's being honest. What I heard is maybe he's afraid of reality. He's afraid of how he's being perceived. He's trying, you know, as a child, he doesn't have the tools to deal with this. So maybe there is a part of him that feels like it's not safe to be the truth, to be who he really is, because he probably has had to deal with pressure from society, you know, when he's being his true self. You know, he's probably getting the message. It's, you know, I know, just speaking for myself, as a bullied child, I got the message as a child, it was not safe to be me. If I was completely me, I got bullied and I got made fun of and I got ridiculed. So sometimes I had to fib, lie, invent another aspect of myself. And I think this is true for a lot of children in positions like this. So I just want to throw that out to you. I mean, take what works, leave what doesn't. That's just what I'm hearing, that maybe that's why he's struggling with the truth, because he doesn't entirely feel it's safe. He needs somehow to know that he's perfect exactly as he is. He's all he needs to be. He's, you know, without getting corny here, God don't make junk. You know, we're all exactly as we're supposed to be. We each bring our gifts to the world, and there are no mistakes. He is exactly what he's supposed to be, but he came into this world with some unique challenges. But I can tell you this, people, like for example, with ADHD, ODD, um, tend to be some of the most brilliant people, some of the most creative people. And one of those reasons, as I said, as an artistic child and being around other artists, we view the world differently. So we have different perspectives, we have different ideas, we have different things to contribute. So just, I don't know, I'm hearing, and forgive me if I'm saying things you've already been doing, but I am hearing like encourage his creativity, encourage what makes him special. Encourage him. What makes him special? What makes him unique? What makes him one of a kind? You know, encourage what he has to give to the world. Let him feel safe in who he is. You know, let him, you know, I'm sure you obviously love him very much, but let him know he's loved, he's appreciated, he's honored for exactly who he is. I hope that helps you. I'm just going by what I'm hearing my guides saying right now, and I do hope this applies. And you've got a lot of really, really good people here who are going to pray. Oh wait, Jess, yes. Thank you so much for taking so much time to share these messages. Everything you said has given me peace of mind. Oh, I was really upset, and I do feel better. He's very creative. I just felt that. This is a very creative child. And I'm certainly not denigrating my mother and father. They did the best they could with me and all, but I had a lot of school teachers who did not understand me. I had a lot of other kids who did not understand me. And I've heard this over and over. A very good friend of mine who was an animator at Disney, worked on Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. He's one of the most brilliant people I know, one of the smartest people I know. But he had a fifth grade teacher who wanted to flunk him and make him repeat the fifth grade and basically said, your kid is stupid. Well, that idiot teacher just didn't know how to teach a supremely gifted, creative child. Children like this need special care. They need special teachers. They need special instruction, people who really understand that. But I really feel that your child is very creative. And I would really do everything you can to encourage that. And I really feel that he'll feel safer to be himself. Maybe not feel such a need to lie, to be more authentic, because it's safe for him to be authentic. So I hope that helps you there. And yeah, I did need to go, but I felt it was very important to answer that. That was not something where I could just pull one card and leave it at there. So anyway, I thank you, Jess, for your words, and I hope that I was of help to you. And just know it's my honor to do this. Anyway, it's about 8:00 my time, and I have to run. But as I said, you can reach me on the Oracle of Whimsy channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. The shows I do with the wonderful Dr. Whimsy Anderson, one of the most brilliant people I know in my life. And I'm proud to work alongside her. And let's see. Yes, you can, of course, reach me here. If you want to email me, it's just my name, Dransfield, Chuck, one word, @gmail.com. I do private readings for people. I do artwork for people. I receive messages from people when I do their portraits. So please keep me in mind. I thank you very much for being here. This has been a wonderful experience. I just thank you. And I send you love for coming here and supporting me week after week. It means everything, and I'm grateful. And so I'm going to say goodbye for right now, but you can know where to find me later in the week, and I will be here next Monday. Thank you so much. Goodbye.